Well, howdy, howdy. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another week of the Savvy Home Seller. What the heck's going on in the real estate market this week? I'm Jen Sylvester, as you can probably figure out. And you do not need to adjust your television set or your computer screen. Your technology is not going on the fritz. My hair is purple. I get that question a ton about the color of my hair. And you know what? Who says the youngins get to have all the fun? Life is short, right? Gotta have some fun, and that's the only reason why I did it. It's just a lot of serious stuff going on in the world, and you know what? We're gonna find the fun where we can. But I got some interesting news to talk to you guys about tonight. And you know, some articles. An article came out that I actually had to take a little bit of a closer look at because I said this is a little different than what we've been seeing for the last couple of years. So I'm excited to share that with you and kind of dive in, and then see if there's some truth to the matter. But before we get into that, we got a couple housekeeping items. First and foremost, make sure you vote in the poll. I want to know what you guys are feeling. Tonight's poll is. Let's see if I can open it up here. If you're thinking about selling, I want to know how you feel. If you're looking to sell in the next 6 months, how you feeling right now? You feeling nervous, confident, confused, excited? Let me know. I thought it was a fun question to ask because you know what? At the end of the day, yes, this is business transaction, but it is full of emotion. So I'm curious to know what you guys are feeling about that. The next item, as always, I want to know about your wins. There is so many challenges, so much negativity. Imagine that negativity in the media. Go figure. Negativity and in all over the place. YouTube, no exception. Let's celebrate some wins. So you get an offer accepted, you get your house on the market. Did you finally organize that junk drawer? Tell me. Share if you're in the chat. Drop it in. If you're watching the replay, drop it in the comments. You know, it's always good to celebrate and support each other on the good stuff that's happening. If you have a question that you want me to see, make sure you put QQQ for those questions so I can make sure that I get to them. I am a solo show here. I do not have a producer. I'm in control of all the magic behind the scenes. And when that chat gets popping, if you put QQQ before the question, then it catches my eye. I don't want to miss your question. And then lastly, the links to all the articles I'm going to talk about today are going to be down in the description. So again, if you want to go a little deeper, you want to read the stuff for yourself and do your own deep dive, which I always recommend, you can check that out. So, we got the chat is popping. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see. SC says, I want to know what's happening in Columbus, Ohio housing market. Is it still a seller's market? Well, you know what? I've got some data that I'm going to show you that might give you some answers on that. So we're gonna chat a little bit about that. We got Kaylee in the house, and we've got Clark in the house. Oh my goodness! Kaylee says, when will the market go down so I can afford a house in California? Oof. I do not have a crystal ball, my friend. It might be a while. We've got Paul and Tracy. I feel like I'm on the romper room here. I see Shelly. I see Sandy. I see Michael. I see Cindy. I need one of those mirrors. Oh my goodness. I really appreciate you guys tuning in every week. I appreciate all the comments and the feedback. This is a ton of fun. I enjoy all this interaction and all the things. I appreciate all you guys immensely. So I'm just going to take a quick, some great questions here. We're going to dive into all the stuff that you guys are chatting about. We're going to get right into it for sure. But first, got some breaking news. Hot off the press. Woo-wee. Oh my goodness. So this week, today, well, would have been yesterday, late yesterday. I came across this article, and I'm 50 something. If you guys watching this, you remember that old ding dong ditch. You may or may not have. You're not in trouble if you did. But you may have done that when you were a kid. Well, this brings a whole new level to what the crazy that's happening in our country. Holy cow. And I don't laugh because I'm laughing at it. I'm laughing because you know what? Sometimes it's better to laugh than to cry. Man charged with shooting at teens during TikTok ding dong door challenge. What the heck? This is out of Dallas Fort Worth. This posted yesterday. It says Frisco police are warning all parents and teenagers after a social media prank nearly ended in tragedy. Aptly called the Ding Dong Door Challenge, another variation of Ding Dong Ditch. The TikTok prank of banging on random homes' front door and running away up for views and likes and so forth. But in Frisco, police said one juvenile prank carried out in late July could have easily ended with 3 young lives lost. Three boys reportedly taking part of the challenge on July 28th ended up with 3 bullet holes lodged in the car they were in after being confronted by one of their targets, the department leader revealed on Monday. This is according to Frisco police. Officers were called to the Scottsdale Way home at about 10:50 p.m. on July 28th for a report of shots fired. 58-year-old homeowner Damon Wolf told police he'd shot at someone who tried to kick in his door. Later that night, Frisco police were called to the Hawk Creek Drive for a report of a vehicle being shot at. According to police, 3 teens at this location described their vehicle being shot at while northbound on Legacy. However, during subsequent interviews, all admitted to ding-dong ditching in a random neighborhood when a man confronted them with a gun. Officers discovered 3 bullet holes in the vehicle. Two shots struck the front of the car. One struck it in the back. One struck the back. Frisco Police Department's CSI team. They called the CSI. Come on, guys. This is Ding Dong Ditch. It's such a crazy level. They called the CSI team. Detectives looked over the car, canvassed the neighborhood for damage and home surveillance footage. Based on their findings, police filed charges against the homeowner for aggravated assault against each of the 3 juveniles and arrested him on August 7th. The second-degree felony charge could carry up to 20 years in prison if convicted. Goes on to, I'm just going to skip to the bottom part here. When asked what homeowners targeted by strangers at their doors should do instead of taking matters in their own hands, how about just ignore it because they're dumb kids? Like, everybody's got a Ring doorbell these days, right? Like, I don't know. They said you should call 911 instead. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. You start whipping around a gun. Come on. It says, while pranks involving young pranksters targeting strangers' doors are nothing new, teens should heed this warning. It's a different time today. Homeowners, they hear something loud beating on their front door. They're scared. You don't know how people respond, and you don't know who lives in that house. And like I said, none of it is worth it. When asked if the minors would face charges, they said no. In this case, the kids won't face any charges. There was no damage to the door. Oh my goodness. Guys, I just wanted to I honestly, I thought the article, I mean, it's horrific that these kids almost were, shot at for pulling a silly kid prank. Um they're almost seriously hurt. Should they have done it? No, of course not. Of course not. But I don't know. I was like, you know what? I completely relate to this article because of the fact that that was a common thing back when I was a kid. Um, I never did it. Anyways, I don't know if you guys had that. Yeah, Paul T says the flaming bag of you know what gag. Yep, that was what you did. Nobody pulled a gun. Yeah, I agree, Angie. People are crazy, 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 crazy. I just think it's just I don't know. Um, it's bonkers. It's just bonkers. I think people are just a frazzled these days. A little bit frazzled. Um, let's take a look here. We got Shelly Norton. It's got sounds like she's got a little win. Been clearing, packing, filling up storage units this entire month. Hope to get picks done by the next week. We're gonna give you a little shout out for a win on that achievement for sure. For sure. For sure. Um, let's see. Cindy wonders, does I replace the toilet seat in the main bathroom? That is a very that's a good thing. That's a small thing that makes it much nicer. Amen. 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 Um, we got Paul T says learning that HOAs don't promote your home values like they say. Our property managers are turning away my buyers. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Geez, I'd like to dig into that information. Well, thank you very much, Kaylee. I appreciate you too. Um, let's see. Blue Jeans says, good to see you. I moved in 1 year ago. I finally started unpacking the things in my last bedroom. Can I tell you how big of a win that is? And I'll tell you why. Because I don't know about you guys, last time you moved, did you have boxes in your house that kind of stuck around for a while? I know I did. I've had years. Why? Because life is busy. Life gets busy. And moving is no picnic. Is no picnic. Yeah, Paul says, get off my lawn, you damn kids. You know what? I got kids in my neighborhood. I live in a regular old, neighbor. No sidewalks in my neighborhood. I caught one of the neighborhood kids, and I live in a corner lot. They crossed across. They rode their bikes across my front lawn to cut the corner. You know what? At least they're not out. I don't know, doing drugs. I guess I don't know. You gotta put this stuff in perspective, guys. Put this stuff in perspective. What is really important in life? Um, it is what it is. But anyways, just thought I'd share that with you, a little fun thing. So we're gonna get into so the article I wanted to show you that really kind of caught my attention, and I think it will you as well. Florida housing market makes a surprising shift. Yes, you read this correctly. So Florida obviously has been center of our attention for, oh my goodness, last 2 years, last year and a half, especially last year. A lot of shift, a lot of inventory spiking, markets slowing down, aside from all the news of, weather challenges and disaster and the whole nine yards. This article came out last week that actually is, based on a report from Pulte Group, which is one of the nation's largest home builders. They're seeing a reversal. It says that one of the nation's largest home builders, Pulte Group, has reported surprising gains in Florida in the last quarter compared to 2024, reversing years of slowing sales and dwindling prices in the state. The Atlanta-based company, which has built over 800,000 homes across the country, said in its latest financial report that net new orders in the Sunshine State climbed 2% in the 3 months ending June 30th compared to a year ago. You know what, guys? I apologize. There's some serious thunder rolling in, and if hopefully I don't lose power. It just took me off guard. But anyways, let's cross our fingers. So it climbed 2% in the 3 months ending June 30th compared to a year earlier, going from 1,265 units to 1,272. I want to note that a lot of the data that comes out is not real time. It's very seldom real time. They need time to process that data. They need to, do all their fact finding and all the things, and it's very rarely, same day. So you say, oh well, it's August 19th, and this was June 30th. It's old news. This is the way the news works. This is how the data works. When this is not uncommon. And to be perfectly honest, when you're looking at a broader stage, the media, the mainstream media, they can be 3 months or more behind, in terms of their reporting. We're already way ahead. So this was as of the end of June, so only about a month and a half ago, and that is different. That the fact that it climbed is definitely different than what we're seeing. Not It's only 2%, but it's in the opposite direction. Um, the Pulte Group president, CEO Ryan Marshall told investors on a call last month that we're really happy with what we saw out in Florida. We get buyers from all over the country and all over the world that come to Florida. We also are seeing a healthy mix of folks moving within Florida as well. I'm seeing that as on my end as well with folks reaching out. I had actually someone local here that is moving. Several locals that are moving down in my area that are moving down to Florida, but I'm also from my referrals that you guys request. That helps me track on who's moving, who's buying, because I get buyer and seller referrals requests, and there are people moving and buying in Florida. And so it goes on to say, why are these gains a surprise? Well, Florida, as if been following the housing market at all, you're aware of this info. Florida has experienced one of the most dramatic housing market corrections in the country in recent months, as a growing number of unsold inventory, including newly built homes, has piled into the market. And during the home buying frenzy that characterized the pandemic years, demand for homes surged in Florida, partly due to the influx of out-of-state newcomers relocating there for its relatively affordable housing, low tax environment, and sunny weather. Chasing the opportunity offered by this growing demand, developers in the state started building more new homes than anywhere else in the country. By the time the new inventory was ready, it was facing a very different market. It says, I'll skip right down to what has changed. Pulte's latest uptick in net new orders in Florida shows that things are starting to change in the state's housing market. While sales of entry level homes remain low due to ongoing affordability challenges, the home builder, even though the market has changed, even though it's shifting, the prices have not. They haven't reverted. Inventory is increasing, but those prices haven't reverted back to more affordable levels in Florida at the moment. It says the home builder, the third largest in the nation, reported an 18% increase year over year in sales of new homes for move-up buyers in the last quarter. That's very interesting. It's very interesting in the sense that you're hearing all over the country how no one's buying, how the market's frozen, how everything is at a standstill, and yet we look at this one home builder, and they're reporting an 18% increase. This is why the headlines don't tell the whole story. It says this is likely due to the fact that the recent decline in home prices in Florida, which has been steep in recent months, now appears to be slowing down as inventory stabilizes across the state. This is good news. If you're in Florida, if you're thinking about selling, if you're thinking about, putting your house in the market in the next 6-12 months, this is good news. This potentially, this means that the proverbial bleeding may have stopped, albeit that it seems like the slide in home prices were, picking up speed for a bit, but it wasn't a uh, hugely dramatic drop. And so now it seems to be significantly slowing down as inventory is stabilizing across the state. The other component with Florida is that they will be heading into their busy season, which is typically in October. So if this indeed is the case with the inventory stabilizing, that the prices are starting to stabilize, buyers are going to start coming out of the woodwork more than they were last year, year before, to take advantage of those prices before they start heading back in the upward direction over the winter. Does that mean that all of a sudden prices will go through the roof? Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because you have inventory. Inventory levels down in Florida are now, well before the 2019 levels. They have the inventory to satisfy a good chunk of the demand. So unlike, up where I'm at in the Northeast, Massachusetts, New England area, where our inventory hasn't recovered, we still have a significant inventory deficit. If demand started to significantly increase, prices would significantly increase. Why? Because there's more demand. There's not enough inventory to satisfy the number of buyers. But if in Florida, because the inventory has come back, that increased demand, yes, it potentially is going to cause an increase in home prices, but not significant. It's not going to spike, through the roof. In terms of overall price appreciation. I'm gonna just jump over to the chat here, and see what's popping. See what's popping. See what's popping. Um, let's see. Let's see. Let's see. We've got Austin Feinberg in the house. Good to see you. Good to see you. Even here on Long Island, where inventory is relatively low, deals are falling apart on homes with offers accepted under ask as sellers refuse to move on price after inspection results show work needed. Long Island has been an area that has been resilient with the housing market to date. And now they are showing some kinks in the armor over there. That's interesting. Let's see. Jose Lazima, good to see you. Thinking about selling my home in the next 4 months. House is worth about 920,000. I owe about 630,000 and looking for 600. Is that a good idea based on the market? Here's, yes, to have an idea of what you want to walk away with. Of course, you want to do your numbers before you even think about moving forward with, interviewing an agent, making the plan, figuring out what you need to do and all the things. Is it a good idea based on the market? It's really going to depend on your local market. It's going to depend on what the realistic pricing, and that would be the thing that I would impress on you. And actually, I have an article that's gonna touch on that. Going forward, heading into the fall, the winter, what should buyers and sellers do? Should they put the brakes on and wait? Or not? But I would say the biggest thing that I would encourage you and anyone thinking about doing that now is you've got to pay attention to what's going on in your market, the median time to medium days in the market, median days to offer. And then realistically, it doesn't matter, when you set a price, it doesn't matter what you want to walk away with to determine what the realistic price is. Now, once you determine what your realistic price is, then you can turn around and say, okay, does that work for my scenario? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe you say, you know what, I'm going to put a pin in it till next year, revisit it next year. But you can never, that's the problem that a lot of home sellers are facing right now, is they're putting their house on the market with their price in mind. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. The buyers give two hoots what you owe. They don't care about what you want to walk away with. It's all about what the value is to them. To them. Let's see. Margaret says, please get a generator. I do have a generator. Yes. Unfortunately, my generator is, it's not a standby. But even on a standby, you still lose power for a few seconds, which means the live stream would stop. But yeah, I'm in Massachusetts and New England. Everybody should have a generator up here for sure. All right. Oh, thank you so much for the
super chat.
Yes, thank you, my friend. Austin says, if an agent represents a seller where they accept an offer under ask with an inspection contingency, shouldn't the agent inform the seller they might need to negotiate again pending inspection results? Yes. 110%. Do the 80% agents that I always talk about, the agents that are not good at they're not good at their job, do they do that? No. And I will tell you that from a seller's perspective, I'm going to caution you. And this is a huge caution, not intended to make you scared, make you nervous. Don't fret, but I tell my folks that, my job is to vet out that offer as much as I possibly can. Try to eliminate the surprises, try to make it as solid as I possibly can by asking the other agent, the buyer's agent, a ton of questions to try to find holes, in the offer, find kinks in the armor. That being said, there is no guarantee. Even if they, you do, I had a situation just recently where I got an offer that is, a home inspection for informational purposes only. There's no such thing. I told my sellers if they have a home inspection, even though they're stating that it's for informational purposes only, the buyer, there's nothing stopping that buyer from coming back and asking. Doesn't mean the seller has to negotiate, doesn't mean the seller has to do anything, but you have to be prepared. That being said, on the seller side, the one thing that I would impress on you is, even if a house is as is, the right thing to do is if when there are safety issues, safety concerns, um, you know what? Do the right thing. Do the right thing. That's you know what? Yes, you're probably making a good chunk of money. I think that, having a good moral compass and doing the right thing, selling a house with a leaky roof or a leaking pipe or, improperly wired outlet or, double tapped breakers could cause a fire. Come on, do the right thing, but be prepared for anything. Great question. And thank you so much for the super chat. Super appreciate it. Um, let's see. Skates 76 as a lot of people retire in June, so that could account for some of the Florida uptick. So here's the thing, and you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. That's a great point. The thing is with the Florida market, their spring market, their busy time is when the snowbirds head down, which is going to be October. So that's when their busy season, typically is October to January, February. That's when most of the stuff happens. So, you're going to see a lot of activity down there, I'm sure, especially based on this article. Uh, let's see. Oh, we got Lee Boudier from Vancouver, BC. Excellent, excellent. Fantastic. Far-reaching. 100%. Um, let's see. Oh, we got a little win. We've got Alyssa finally got an offer on my house here in Fernandina Beach, Florida. Took 2.5 months and I had to lower the price by 90 grand. Lost so much money. But I'm about to buy a new home in Ormond Beach, Florida. Here's what I'm going to tell you, Alyssa. First off, congratulations. Congratulations on getting an offer. Um, Here's the other thing. I want you to focus on the win. What does that mean? That means focus on the new Ormond Beach house. Don't take your mind off, take the focus off the money you lost. And the reason being is there's a big black hole that I think a lot of homeowners get into when that happens, when they adjust that price downward, and the feeling is that they're losing money. The feeling is that I started here and now I'm here. That means I'm taking it on the chin and I'm putting money on the table and I'm losing. You're not losing anything. You're not losing. You didn't lose. You can't lose something you never had. You can't lose something you never had. Now, maybe the market changed when you put the house on the market. Maybe the comps were there and the property was priced according to the comps when you put it on the market. And over the course of time, oftentimes what happens is if you get caught up in a cycle where that market is changing as the house goes on the market, you end up playing catch up. So you lowered a little bit, but now you're just caught up to where you probably should have been before. In the meantime, the market's still moving. All of a sudden, now you're behind again. So you have to make another adjustment, and then you're behind. And that battle does not mean you're leaving money on the table. That means the price wasn't right to begin with. And maybe it not your fault. Maybe it's not the agent's fault. Maybe it's nobody's fault. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the agent's fault. Maybe, whatever. It doesn't matter. Point fingers. It is what it is. But have the mindset that it's not about leaving the money on the table. It's about moving forward. That's all it is. Focus on that because that's old news. It's allowing you to get to the next step. That is the most important thing. 110%. I wanted to I just want to wrap up this article real quick because there was a couple other good pieces of information in here. It says, active inventory in Florida reached a record high in April. of 182,600 homes on the market. But 2 months later, it was already falling. And this is what I'm saying with with this data being behind and us not knowing about it until it's in our rear view mirror. It says, but 2 months later, it was already falling, sliding to 174,600 in July. Okay, so yeah, you say, well, 174, that's like 8,000 homes. It's not a ton spread over the entire state of Florida. Does it matter? It's not the number itself, it's the trajectory. That trajectory could predict what is going to happen in July, August, September, if that continues to be a pattern. This is a drop in new listings actively played a role in this decline as home builders facing weaker demand pulled back on new construction. Yep, between January and June, new permits for single family homes in Florida were on just under 60,000, down 11%. Yep, this is at the national level. Single family permits declined by 6% in the same time frame. We've been seeing this happen. More builders pulling back. They don't want to get stuck like they were in the great financial crisis, where they were left holding the bag because they built too many homes and they couldn't offload them. Different market, and the recovery is going to be different than it was in the great financial crisis. Completely different. Completely different in the sense that we have different catalysts that started the fire. Totally different catalysts. So it says, while home prices are still falling in Florida and are now 10% below lower than they were 2 years ago, as inventory is now above pre-pandemic levels and demand is kept low by high costs, these declines are bringing buyers back into the market. This is why we're seeing a shift. This is why we're seeing a shift. The thing, and I've said this, when you decide, say you decide you want to buy a house in Florida, and this is a thing that's been on your radar. That's a beautiful, especially coming into October. It's like their most absolutely gorgeous time of year down there. It's cool, it's dry, all the things. Once they get through hurricane season, all that kind of stuff. Those buyers just hit pause. So you say, well, nobody's buying, nobody's buying. They didn't disappear and decide. Some of them maybe they did. But the majority of them, just like across the country, buyers are not taking a step back and saying, I'm never going to buy a house ever. They're saying, some of them are pausing 6 months, a year. Some of them are pausing longer, but they're just pausing, which means that determination, that desire to buy doesn't go away. It's just suppressed, which means it's gonna, eventually it will come back. And that's what's starting to happen. People are seeing the opportunity as those prices are coming down, and they have lots of choices. Lots of choices. It's a buyer's market. It's a good thing. From a buyer's perspective, get a little bit more leverage with the homeowners, with the home sellers. Not necessarily a bad thing from a home seller, because that means you're not sitting on the property. A lot of other areas in the country don't have that kind of activity. So you're putting the house on the market, even though the price seems right, it's still sitting because the buyer activity isn't there yet. It's not, it's people are pressing pause and not making a move. So at least you've got that. Tim Weishier, let's say that right, 2025 Florida Realtors president, says we're seeing buyers starting to settle into the reality that today's market conditions are the new normal. God, I heard that during the recovery from the great financial crisis, and I got sick of hearing it, but it is true. It's adjusting our expectations, and I think sellers are seeing the same thing. They're, coming to, if you have homes on the market, home sellers in your area, that you've probably seen some of this shift. They're coming into an acknowledgement that it's not going backwards. This is the way it is. Normal. The market is normalizing. It says if they want to own a home, this is the environment they'll need to navigate, and it's a relatively stable one. So what's next? It says, while it may feel like new inventory has slowed, your feelings tend to betray you. I'm just putting that right there. There's a lot of, it doesn't feel right, doesn't feel right. Look at the data. There, and what Even though new inventory is slow, the data tells a more nuanced story. Year to date, new listings of single family homes in Florida are actually up 4.4% compared to last year, driven largely by strong activity in the first quarter. Meanwhile, new townhouse listings are down less than 1% year over year compared to 2024. Less than 1%. Month to month dips can be misleading, and they're often driven by seasonal or personal factors. It's important to look at the big picture, which doesn't necessarily show a significant slowdown in new inventory, but rather a stabilization. That that is super, super important. Super, super important. Why? Well, if you live in an area, number one, that has any type of seasonality, meaning Florida has their weather and their seasonal, their snowbird season, we'll call it. New England has seasonal changes because of weather. Any part of the country, and I've heard this depending on who you listen to on YouTube and who you talk to. Some people will tell you August is a terrible, terrible month to list. Some people will tell you it's the best month to list. You've got to take that into consideration. But not only that, you've got to look at the bigger picture, because little bumps that, maybe there was a wildfire in California, maybe there was a hurricane, maybe there was whatever not. Uh, any type of temporary adjustment in a month could throw the numbers off for that 1 month. You need to look at a bigger set of data. 3 months, 6 months, but at least a quarter, so you can actually see the big picture. Ideally, 12 months will give you the actual ebb and flow of the market. That's the only real way to know what's happening, in your particular in your particular area. Okay, all right. I'm just gonna to let's check out and see here what's happening. You can hold on a second here. Enjoy a little bit of background music while I read the chat. Feel free to grab your favorite beverage. I've got my organic tea here. Let's see here. Austin says the way Florida is looking, that 90,000 loss might be 130,000 next year. You're not wrong. Celebrate this. Celebrate where you're at. Oh, Mr. Matney in the house, and thank you so much, my friend.
Super chat.
I appreciate the super chat. Dave says, I'm not sure if $5 can still buy a cup of coffee. Well, good thing I don't drink coffee, I drink tea. So have a cup for me. Don't forget to give Jen thumbs up. Thank you so much, my friend. I truly appreciate it. 110%. I appreciate you. And I think $5, I don't know. Here, $5 will get you a 4 for $4 at Wendy's. I don't know if they have that out where you guys are at. But that's like even in this economy, 4 for $4 at Wendy's is like over the best bargain of the century. Let's see. I'm gonna just oh my goodness. I am scrolling. Good grief, Charlie Brown. Angie says, yes, the agent should tell the seller that, but it depends on how much under ask it was. Maybe the seller calculate that in difference 5,000 to 40,000, between 5 and 40,000. Must be that was in regards to the question from earlier. Let's see. Paul T says, buyers may be cheap and do their own inspection, then ask for things based on their opinion, not the assessment of a professional. If you are a home seller and you know what, the buyers, can they do their own inspection or have their father that was a contractor or uncle come in? You bet. But if they start coming to the seller, if they start coming to you and asking for adjustments based on their findings, you need to insist insist on a licensed contractor to back up those findings. Plain and simple. There's no wait. That would be like me just walking in and saying, you know what? That roof looks like it's about 25 years old. I want 10 grand. Who am I? I am not a roofer. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a licensed contractor. So how is that any different? It's not. You need to get a roofing contractor. Back up that claim. So make sure that you don't get pushed around as far as that's concerned. Uh, let's see. We've got, oh my goodness. Bum, 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 bum. Well, goodness. Thank you so much again, Austin. Da, 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 da.
Super chat.
I appreciate you, my friend. Austin says, in a softer market, could it make sense to list 5% lower than comps and state the house is being sold as is to reduce impact on inspection findings? Oh, this is such a great question. Thank you so much for asking this. So, first off, you got a couple different things, a couple different pieces to unpack here. Does it make sense to list it 5% lower than comps? I would not have the mindset of 5% as a number that you need to adhere to. What am I talking about? You need to look at your competition. That's the most important thing. When I sit down with a homeowner and we're figuring out it's a two-step process. You're going to figure out what the value is, then you figure out what the list price is. They're not one and the same. Everyone thinks it is, but it's not. The value is what we can comp out. We look at other properties that have sold in the last several months. We have an idea, looking into the future, what a buyer might pay, what that value is worth, what we can justify based on our comparable property findings. What we can justify is the value that I feel comfortable in putting the net proceeds sheet together for the seller and saying, okay, based on this number, I feel very confident that you'll get at least that, and then we back out all the expenses, and that's how you can, look at your numbers and justify, make an educated decision on whether you're going to sell the house and all the things. That number is what it is. There's no discussion. Unfortunately, the value is the value. However, depending on the market, what you list it for might be different. Now, when we were in an appreciating market, it was not uncommon to say this is what we can justify, but because we have no competition or we have competition that is far above this, we'll price it here. And I always, from a marketing standpoint, I always want to undercut the competition. Why? Because I want to get to the finish line first. I want to beat the competition. I want to get the buyer that buys that house. I want them to buy that house. I want them to buy my client's house. So undercutting, but the percentage isn't set in stone. I look at it from an aspect of knowing experiential knowledge and knowing what the area is doing. It may only be 1%. It may be what it needs. You've got to look at it as a whole. So in a softer market, you're not going to do it the opposite. You're going to do it the opposite. You're going to say, okay, this is what we can justify now to determine a list price. We're going to look at our competition. Look at your competition, what's on the market. When you're looking at evaluation, it's only what's sold. What the list price is based on what your competition actively is. Who are you competing against in the market? And then you undercut them. How much you undercut them really depends on how much inventory there is. It depends on your home as compared to that inventory. If it's apples to apples, you probably don't need to undercut it that, 5%. So I hope that helps you answer that question. But the other part of your question was, stating it as is. There's a lot of debate on the term as is. Here is my opinion. When a buyer sees the words as is on a listing, what do they think? What's wrong with this house? They're selling it with defects. Why else would they say as is unless it has problems? And just whether it does or not, I very much advise my clients not to use those words. The reality of it is there is very little protection from putting the words as is in a listing. And I know I've got pushback on this. I've talked about this in my videos. Just put as is. It's like the fact of the matter is as is does not protect you. If you have any state required inspections, the state does not care that you put as is, in the contract. As is does not mean that they still won't ask. As is doesn't mean that they won't back out. If a buyer comes in and makes you have it in the contract, you have it in the offer. The house is being sold as is. The buyer says, well, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm not biting off more than I can chew. Because you're telling me it's as is, now I'm a little bit worried that there's issues that I don't know about. So I'm going to have my home inspector come in. Just because you put the words as is does not mean they're not going to ask. Can you say no? Of course, you can say no. You don't have to fix things when a buyer makes a request on an offer, but you can't stop them from asking. You can't stop them from asking. I think selling a house as is such a misconception. The other piece is technically, on the flip side, every home is sold as is. Jen, what are you talking about? Well, you buy a car, there's a lemon law. Lemon laws vary based on the state. When something happens, I had this situation, oh gosh, 15 years, 15, 18 years ago, thereabouts. My husband, at the time, and I bought a car, and a used car, and oh my goodness. And my husband knows cars. I've learned by being with my husband learned a lot. I know a lot about cars, and it appeared like it was a great car. It wasn't. Lemon law. We were able to return it, get our money back. There is no lemon law on houses. It is what it is. Once it's recorded, now I'm going to put an asterisk and say that I don't know the laws in every state in the country, but I can speak for Massachusetts anyways, and a lot of other states that follow suit. Once that deed is recorded, once that ownership transfers from the seller to the buyer, that's it. It doesn't matter that the new owner who now has possession all of a sudden discovers that the dishwasher's junk, the refrigerator dies the day after closing. Does that happen? Yeah, it does. Does that mean they're entitled to anything? Not unless the seller knowingly misrepresented it. If the seller said absolutely, positively, that roof never leaks, and then then you discover in the first rainstorm that the water's pouring through, and you go up there, you find out, oh, this roof's been leaking for a while. There's no way that the seller didn't know about this. Now you can file a claim in small claims court, but technically every house is sold as is. Anyways, that was a long-winded answer to your question, and I appreciate you immensely asking. For sure. And I apologize. I am not gonna be able to get to every single one of your comments on the chat, but I will definitely come. If I don't get to your comment in the chat here during the live stream, I will, make a comment down. You can pop something in the comments, after the fact, for sure. Because I really appreciate you guys all being here. Let's see. Scott S. says rural interest rates are way too high to purchase, and yet people are purchasing. I think the issue is affordability is keeping people at bay. The fact that on homes are the affordability issue in this country is an epidemic proportions. Richard T. bought and closed a home in but my neck of the woods. Congratulations, Wellesley, Mass. Yes, for those watching, it is not pronounced Wellesley. It's Wellesley up here in Massachusetts. Congratulations, Richard. QQQ. Hey, thanks for doing that. Mary Beth says, would you consider doing a show regarding OGM rights It's a very confusing, frustrating issue here in Western PA when buying a home with acreage. OGM, can you elaborate on OGM? I'm drawing a blank on what that is, which, I mean, I'm in Massachusetts, so not knowing, you know, Pennsylvania lingo, let me know. See if drop it in the chat and see if and just let me know what OGM is. Hey, thanks so much. My kids got that for me for Christmas a couple years ago. I said, "Mom, you're our superhero." Oh, they don't drive me crazy all the time. I guess I'll keep them around. Um, let's see here. Oh my goodness, so many great comments. Robert Cole says, live in Southeast Ohio, can't seem to find an agent that is going by the new commission rules. Everyone still asking 6%. It says nothing has changed regarding how a buyer's agent gets paid. This makes me furious. Makes me frustrated beyond belief, because this is absolutely happening across the country. There's no question about it. I have interviewed referral partners. When you folks, call in, sometimes it takes me, longer than I'd like to get back to you with a referral, because I have to interview multiple referral partners, and finding out, I don't always find out how they are offering, how their commission discussions pan out. And I'm finding out that that is not uncommon, and it is totally against the rules. So what can you do? Well, you can report them to your state agency, for starters. But in terms of, I mean, there's no, being that it's not a law, they're not breaking any laws. They're breaking a trade organization rule. It's just wrong. So I feel your frustration. I share your frustration, and I don't have, unfortunately, there's not a magic button. There's not an easy button to make that go away at the moment. All you can do is put your stick, dig your heels in, and insist on, if they say 6%, if you ask them, what is your commission? They say 6%. What is your commission? 5%. You need to repeat the question, say, no, I want to know what the listing commission is, period. And I know I've had some folks reach out to me and say, well, they insist on having a buyer agent commission in the listing contract. The listing agent can't do that. What their job is, if they're doing that, they're not a 20% agent. A 20% agent, so just so you can manage your expectations, we are not miracle workers. If you say, I'm not paying a buyer agent fee, that's fine. You can do that. But you need to understand that we can't necessarily get the same results compared to if you were willing to participate. What does that mean? Well, say you have a leaking roof. Your roof is leaking like a sieve, and you say, you know what? I'm going to sell it as is. And you say, you know what? You can do that. Or you can offer a credit to the buyer for the replacement of a roof. Now, one half does or another, like what do you think is going to happen there? Will you be able to find someone that is able to buy that? Yes. Will they pay as much for that house? No, because they're going to have to dig into their pocket for the cost of the roof. But if you offer to give them a credit for the cost of said roof up front, you're going to make it sell faster. The faster it sells, the more money you put in your pocket. You'll make it available to more buyers, because not every buyer has money in their pocket for said roof. So you're opening your field. The wider the field, the more buyers you appeal to, the more interest you'll have, the more potential offers, the higher the sale price. So our job is to go over all those options for you, and then you decide. And if you don't want to pay a buyer agent fee, that's your decision. But you need to understand, and our goal is to help you understand what all of your options are. That being said, if an agent tells you, we're not listing this house unless you agree to pay up front a buyer agent commission, I would, and I get a lot of Unhappy comments, messages from real estate agents that don't like me saying this. Tough, tough, because this is how you advocate for yourself. This is how you advocate for yourself. You tell them, "I'm sorry, you're not the agent for me." And you go to the next one. And yes, is it a pain? And you might have to interview agent after agent after agent. Or you can just say, you know what? It is what it is, and this is what I'm going to do. There's no shame in that. The goal is to get the house sold. But they're doing exactly what the whole lawsuit was intended to fix, but you can't force people to do the thing that the settlement required because it's not a law. Nobody's breaking a law, nobody's going to jail for doing that. It's just bad business. Uh oh my goodness, let's see here. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Manual says I was worried about my mother selling this year because the agent told her she could get $650,000 for a 1,300 square foot home, quarter acre lot last fall. Surprisingly, she closed at $702,000 in June. Where are you located? Holy cow! Oh my goodness, my goodness, my goodness. That's crazy. But depending on your market, that is 110, 100% possible. Oh, here we go. Mary Beth says, the OGM, oil, gas, and mineral rights. Interesting, interesting, interesting. I'll have to dig into exactly what you're referring to there because, um, oil, gas, and mineral rights, because you had asked about would you consider doing a show regarding the rights? Very confusing, frustrating here in Western PA. So, are you talking about gas easements, electric easements, that type of reference? Whereas the gas company is, is going over your property and creating an easement to do so. Because we have that here as well, but I'll have to dig into that and see what uh, see what kind of um, see what kind of information I can come up with. There we go. Wrote it down because if I don't write it down, it's not going to happen. Um, I wanted to get into um, some more info because Florida is not the only state seeing some shifts. Now, Florida is seeing some shifts in terms of builder demand and what they're building, and they're seeing their numbers increase. Things are starting to settle down there. But the opposite is true in a couple other states. So this data came out last week. This is realtor.com. Homes are piling up in these states. These states have had the most dramatic shifts. It says the U.S. housing market is continuing to its slow but steady rebalancing. That is going to be a term I want you to remember. We are not experiencing a crash. If there was going to be a crash, it would have happened already. It would have happened already. There's nothing spearheading a crash. It's just been a slow and steady decline. It's like a car that's run out of gas. That's it. The car is just slowing down and it's slowing down on its own. Um, it says it's a steady rebalancing, giving buyers more options than they had in years. Certain states, there have been a significant increase in inventory. Here are the states: Nevada, Maryland, North Carolina lead the way in year-over-year inventory growth. Nevada has seen a strong uptick in investor seller activity recently, which could be driving listings higher as buyer demand pulls back, which is different than what we're seeing in Florida. We're seeing buyer demand increase in Florida, which is one of the reasons why that's impacting the market in the way it is. Whereas a lot of these other states, the exact opposite's happening. It says compared with the same time last year, Nevada has seen a 52.9% increase in the number of homes on the market, the biggest increase in the state, in any state. Maryland followed that with 48.2%. Wow. North Carolina saw surging popularity during the pandemic and is returning to some balance. Maryland has seen, and we've been watching the shift in Maryland over the last 6 months. It says Maryland has seen less extreme swings in prices and inventory, but is seeing inventory climb recently as buyer demand simmers. The inventory of homes for sale across the country in July 2025 rose 24.8% year over year, marking the 21st consecutive month of inventory growth and the third consecutive month of over 1 million active listings. July's inventory reached a new post-pandemic high, though it is still sits at 13.4% below pre-pandemic levels. But while more homes are available nationwide, certain states are seeing the more dramatic shifts. Let's see here. It says lower home prices and mortgage rates will be important to bring buyers back into the market as buyer demand returns. Available inventory can supply more home shoppers with desirable options. However, it will be important for supply to ramp up with demand to ensure price growth doesn't pick up once again. What they're talking about is the fact that what will keep this prices that you probably have heard. I've talked about this. It's in the news that if interest rates, mortgage interest rates, not the Fed, we're talking mortgage interest rates. If the mortgage interest rates continue to trend downward, and we start seeing at the same time lower home prices, the home sellers continually cut those prices, and it becomes a little bit more affordable. We are going to see more home buyers come out of the woodwork. However, if we don't have more new inventory to balance that, which is why Florida's in the advantageous situation that it's in, if you don't have that inventory to balance it, it's going to go bonkers again. We're going to see prices go through the roof. Supply and demand. If there's not enough inventory to satisfy the amount of supply to the amount of demand, then that supply, that those home prices are going to go up. And that's one of the key things that we're all watching is, we need that inventory. Inventory growth, the number of homes coming on the market, is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing to have competition. It is not. I don't want you guys to be afraid of competition. If you see more homes for sale in your neighborhood, you know what? That's fine. It will help, even out the market. And all it takes is pricing your house properly to get your house out, get it under contract. Top 10 states where inventory is piling up the most. Well, at the top 5, Nevada, Maryland, North Carolina, California, Arizona. I had, I think a viewer had asked me, I don't remember who it was. Actually, I have some data I'm going to jump over to on Columbus, Ohio as well. But I'm going to jump into that next, actually, to kind of show you exactly where the shifts are. But those 5 states, you're over 36%, Maryland 36%, in inventory, North Carolina 34%, almost 32% in California, and then 31% in Arizona. So things are moving and grooving. Things are shifting, and not necessarily in a bad way. Let's see here. See something, say something. I love your avatar, by the way. Love it, love it. We're in contract mode right now. Inspection is in a couple days. Septic guy inspecting tomorrow. We've got 1 acre, well cared for by original owners, 1963 brick ranch, original character intact and all. Congratulations. You know what? Anybody getting an accepted offer, no matter where you're at, good for you. Arnold says won't lower rates, just spike demand and lead to more affordability issues. What does a healthy correction look like? Yeah, and I think that this is, unfortunately, I don't have timestamps on these, so this probably came in before I, went through that whole dialogue just a few minutes ago. It will spike demand. The key is going to be inventory. That's going to be the key. The key is going to be inventory. If there's enough inventory to satisfy that demand, meaning the inventory, all of these numbers with inventory rising is a good thing. This is a good thing. This is a blessing. Why? Because it's going to keep things from going bonkers in the other direction. If we've got that inventory to satisfy the demand when things start to pick up again, because they always do. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Um, it'll be more stifled because there'll be enough homes. So it'll be more balanced. Great question. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Margaret says, is it a good idea for a seller to have a home inspection and fix important issues if found and present it to the buyer? It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. Here's my school of thought. If you have been in the home for a long time, or maybe you inherited the home, but you've lived in the home, and maybe it has some, deferred maintenance. It has a lot of deferred maintenance. You want to know to manage your expectations, so to eliminate surprises. You want to know what to expect. Having a home inspection before the house goes on the market can help with that. Here's the flip side. If it has to do with disclosure, if you have a home inspection and now you have known issues, and this is where you kind of skirt on the moral dilemma, because if you have a home inspection, you have known issues, you need to disclose that to the buyer. If you don't have an inspection, you don't know about the issues, there's nothing to disclose. If you have a leaky roof, you get water coming in the basement, how do you not know that? But if you have a full home inspection and you find out that there are some electrical things that need to be taken care of that could be dangerous, if you don't disclose that, those are known issues. Could that come back to bite you? Yes. If you have a home inspection report and present it to the buyer, that could open you up for more negotiation than the buyers were originally planning to do. Their home inspectors on their end to have a home inspection if they want a home inspection, but it may be creating more issues, especially if you have a nervous buyer. If you have a nervous buyer that's looking for issues, it might lead to opening up a can of worms. So my advice, do I have my home sellers do a home inspection every time? No, I do not. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't. I think that if are concerned enough because you haven't done deferred maintenance, or, I have a situation where, I have a couple where the husband did, or the wife did all the home maintenance on the house, and then that spouse passes away. And then the surviving spouse says, I don't know anything about this house. And I want to know. You do a home inspection. And you have that report. Are you obligated to give the buyer the report? No. You own the report. Just like the buyer's not obligated to give you their report. They own that report. That's their inspection. They could have an inspection, ask for nothing, you never see the report. They're not required to give you a copy of the home inspection report. If they ask you for repairs, I would insist on seeing that part of the inspection where the repairs are noted. That you do have a right to see. And as a listing agent, I will not negotiate with the buyer's agent unless we have something in writing. You can't just email me and say they want $5,000 off because of electrical and plumbing issues. Yeah. And I need to buy milk on the way home. And you show me some proof. Show me some proof. You've got to back it up. We want to see what the inspector wrote with our own two eyes, because maybe the seller will get their own contractor in to get a second opinion, which is always an option. So I hope that helps answer that question. I'm just gonna jump down here and see if you guys have any questions. Oh, such a great stuff here. Great stuff. I do want to get into my last piece of info before I run out of time here. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see. Okay. Skate says, have you ever noticed the inventory shifting at all in New England or Mass recently? Yes. Yes. Most definitely. Not dramatically. Super, super slow. But yes, there are homes that are coming to the market, and primarily it's homes that are not priced properly. Plain and simple. Um, and I can say that with a great degree of confidence. Why? I put a house on the market several weeks ago. It was sold in 4 days. I'm not boasting about it. I'm not bragging about it. What I am saying is that I went through the data very, very detailed, very thorough, had long conversation with my home sellers, my clients, went over the data to get together, decided on a plan of attack on how we wanted to market it. The price was a great price. It was enough. Did we get hundreds of, crazy over asking? No, that ship has sailed. Did they take it on the chin? Nope, they did not. So it was because we knew the market. I knew what was happening in the market at that time, and I cautioned the sellers against taking any risk. And it paid off. It paid off and paid off. And that's what I see. That's what's happening in New England. I think that overzealous sellers that feel like they're losing money, again, not their money to lose. If you never had it, how can you lose it? Um, and I can say that about my waistline. I've never had a small waistline, so I guess I can't say I miss it because it was never there. So what can you do? Um, Austin says, yeah, a lot of good stuff going on, Austin. A lot of good comments. As the employment stumbles nationwide, this significantly impacts the pool of potential buyers. Couple this with rising inventory, high rates. You're looking at the start of the downturn. Here's the thing: I think we've already been in the downturn, my friend. I think it's already been happening. I definitely think that that the employment challenge is not getting any better anytime soon. That's my own gut feeling because there's no indicators that it will. There's nothing that I don't see anything happening that is going to help improve that. Now, will the rates, if the rates don't come down significantly, but rising inventory dampens demand, which means that prices come down, buyers will always buy based on their own personal needs. Just because of what's happening in the market, just because what's happening in the economy, just what's happening in the job market, people will not stop buying and selling homes. And I'm telling you, as I'm sitting here 30 years, almost 30 years, 29 and a half years I've been doing this. Okay, 20, I have never not worked. Why? Because there's always a need. Yes, there's ebb and flow. There's always ebb and flow. But when you put your house on the market, the key is to compete for that one buyer because those buyers are out there. They might be fewer and far in between. But it's not a downturn, it's a softening. It's a softening. It's an adjustment. It's a realignment to where it should be. We had a stupid market during the pandemic. It was a stupid market. It was unrealistic. It was not where it should be. We can't compare that to an adjustment from the last 3 years, from 2020 to 2023. Okay. That time period, real estate was stupid. Okay. It was just things are bonkers. They were not normal. Now we're coming down from the high. That's what it is. Is that a downturn? No, that's an adjustment back to reality. We're getting back to where we were before pandemic. And that is not a crisis. It's not a crash. It is not like sound the alarms. No, it's getting back to normal where houses don't sell in a day. Houses don't sell in a week. A month, 30 days, 60 days was normal. 45 days was normal. Now, if I get messages that you guys reach out and you're like, my house has been on the market for 3 weeks and I'm panicking. 4 weeks and now what the heck is, should I get a new agent? Well, what's the median time frame in your market right now? If it's not, if the median time in your market is like 7 days, well, then yeah, you got to get a new agent. But if the median time is 30 days, 45 days, and it's only been 3 weeks, what you're feeling and the data are misaligned. It's always going to feel bad. Trust me. Okay. I'm 50, I'm in my mid 50s. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. This whole menopause thing is a pain in the butt. It feels worse than it actually is sometimes, right? Housing market. And yes, I did just compare the housing market to menopause. And because you know what? A lot of things line there, like driving you crazy. Anywho. um, Oh, wiggly arm guy. Oh, I love your handle. I love your avatar. As a seller, is it better to the buyers looking in to make one big price correction or a few little ones as time passes? Oh, this is a great question. Um, I'm a fan of one. Why? Because you're gonna have a bigger splash. You're going to have a bigger splash. If you have a price that is, and I see this all the time and I just chuckle, you have a house, say we'll just take a number, 500,000. You have a house that's listed for 500,000 and they have it listed at 499.9. And this is a $500,000 house. And then the price gets adjusted to 495 or 492. Seriously? Think about this for a second. Do you honestly think if you are the buyer that a $5,000 adjustment on a $500,000 house is going to be the reason that you're like, oh my gosh, it's $5,000 cheaper? I can totally afford it now. No, no, no. It's a blip. It barely gets noticed. It barely gets noticed. I think a more an adjustment that makes it more because what you want to do is if you're not getting offers and you need a price adjustment right now, likely what's going to happen is that you are behind the market. And if you're in a softening market, which across the country you likely are, right? Then that means that when you make that adjustment, now all you're doing is putting yourself, like I mentioned earlier, you're putting yourself behind the eight ball because you were maybe higher than you should be. You make that small adjustment, you think you're going to be in alignment with the market, but guess what? It's a moving target, guys. The market's a moving target. If that slow, steady pace is going, 10 miles an hour, and your price drops are only going 5 miles per hour, you're just chasing it. And you'll end up having to do two, three, four, five price drops when in actuality, what you should have done is you look at where the value is now, do the comps. I had this sit down back when the market was normal. I do a full CMA with my clients, like they did in the beginning. Pull comps on what is happening, what is sold, what's under contract, what our competition is. Every price drop. We look at, and then if it's a declining market, if it's a sliding market, you're going to say, okay, here's where we should be. Now we're going to back it down a little bit more because we want to make an impact. We want to get the attention of the buyers. That might mean a bigger chunk. Yes, it hurts. But again, like I said earlier, you're not losing money that is real that you didn't have. Yes, it might cause you to say, listen, if we reduce it to this price, that's going to affect my net, which means I can't do the thing that I want to do after I sell. So maybe you make the hard decision to take it off the market or readjust your priorities, readjust your plan, and so forth. Nobody's telling you have to sell it and put yourself in a financial jeopardy, but the reality is that you need to be in alignment with what buyers are willing to pay. So I hope that helps because that's such a great question, and it is here's the other component. I think that from and I see this time and time again, an 80% agent, an inexperienced agent, an agent that is looking to pacify you. You need an agent that says to you, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. That's what I say all the time, and that's what should be want. That's what your agent should be telling you. They're not there to pacify you, make you feel good, and all the things. Our job is provide information, is to rip the Band-Aid off. And yeah, sometimes it hurts. It hurt during the great financial crisis. It hurt a lot. It hurt a ton to sit down with a homeowner when prices fell. They fell 30 to 35% across the country. Here, it fell 30%. And to sit down across the table from a homeowner and saying over the last year, this is where I know we talked about selling last year, but now here's where you are. It was awful, but they relied on me to tell them what they needed to hear, not what they wanted to hear. That is what your agent should be doing. So, all right. That's my soapbox. That was a great question. It's a great question. Um, let's see. What is my next goal? I don't know what my next goal is. What is my next goal? To get up and be vertical tomorrow morning. that's, that's a short-term goal. Oh my goodness. I need a little time off. That's what I need. Um, Angie says, Jed, if something is found in a home inspection, do you usually agree to the full repair price or negotiate it down? Ooh, yeah, this is a great question. This is something that comes up all the time. It really depends, Angie. It really depends on what it is. For example, and I see this come up, water heater. Hot water heaters at the end of its life. Why? 7-year average warranty on a hot water heater, 7 years, and it's year 8. Home inspector, and it's easy to see. It's part of the serial number. You can find out when the manufacturer date is, and that's what home inspectors will do. They'll look at it and say, "This is, Mr. Mrs. Buyer, this hot water heater is overdue and needs to be replaced. Why? Because the warranty expired last year. It's not leaking. There's no corrosion. There's nothing wrong with the water heater, but it is definitely something that you need to budget for, because it likely will need to be replaced sometime in the near future. Okay, fine. Buyer says to the seller, Mr. Seller, I want you to compensate, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 for a new hot water heater. It's not, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But say that's all they asked for. And the seller says, you know what? They didn't ask for any other items. We'll have a discussion over it. However, I'm not giving you $3,000 because there's nothing wrong with it. That's when we negotiate. Negotiation, this is what, I'm gonna step out and say that here's the reason why you need a good agent. Our job is not just to get you the buyer. That's the small part. That's the small part. Is the real work starts when you get under contract. There is negotiation from the time we find the buyer to the time we get to the closing table and you have your check in your hands or you get your keys in your hands. There is negotiation always. So negotiation on whether you're going to have any kind of repairs, negotiation on what type of a credit, negotiation on any credit, all the things. You've got to read the room. You've got to decide, do you want to lose the buyer or not? You've got to look at, sometimes you make the tough decision, based on your market. If it's the only buyer that's shown any interest, you might just say, you know what, I don't like that they asked, but you know what, this means I can move on and get to my next goal. I want to get to the purchase. I want to be out of this house so I can move on. And the only thing standing in my way is $2,000, $3,000. Sometimes that happens. But yes, do you negotiate when it's appropriate? Yes. 110%. Let's see. Also says, what's with the 2.5% agent fee plus an additional dollar amount, like $500? Is that normal? Oh, Paul. Yeah, it's here's what I'm going to tell you. And again, this is not going to be super popular with my agent community. The good agents, I'm not talking to you. This is to my 20% agents. You're not going to be offended by this at all. The agents right now, yes, the sellers are taking it on the chin. It hurts to be a seller. you're struggling to be a buyer. Well, guess what? If the number of transactions are going down, there are a lot of agents that don't have a consistent book of business, that don't continually offer service. And I'm going to tell you straight up, my referral partners, when I reach out to my referral partners, they are busy. Why are they busy? Because they've built relationships and they've built a foundation on providing not just regular service, not just, you know, providing what an agent needs to do. They go above and beyond. And because of that, when there is somebody buying or selling in their area, they go directly to them. So they're not starving. But the agents that don't know how to run their business professionally, they don't have a book of business, that they don't have a solid foundation, they're starving. And what are you doing? What are they going to do when they're starving? They're going to add more fees. They're going to ask for more money. Um, I will tell you that my brokerage, for their own decisions, started to, and I don't mind saying this, they started to ask for an administration fee, which is something that is not uncommon to keep the doors open. From a broker's perspective, it's not easy running a real estate office. I would never want to do it. Monetarily wise, it's extremely hard. I don't pass that on to my clients. I absorb that. I absorb it. I don't pass that on. I absorb a lot of this, a lot of the fees. Why? Because I think it's the wrong thing to do, number one. But I'm not going to gouge my clients. So yeah, it's becoming popular, Paul, and I think that I don't approve. Jen says no. Make it, buyers and sellers are paying enough money as it is. Um, Let's see. Lucy Lou, I'm in Lancaster, California. Listed my nice 5-bedroom, 2.5 bath 3 weeks ago. No traction. Yeah, California is struggling. No traction during open houses. Taking a pause and doing only appointments if any. Price is right too. So that's where it becomes challenging. What you just said there, that's where it becomes a little bit challenging. If the price were right, it would be sold. If the price were right, it would be sold. Unless, asterisk, you have a super, super, super unique house. If you have a super unique house with a really small buyer pool and you're looking for a very, very, very specific type of buyer, then it's not a price issue, it's a buyer issue. But if you're in a home that's in an area that is desirable, you have other houses that have sold, if the whole neighborhood, nothing's moving, it could be just an affordability issue. But something tells me that if you're in California, people that are buying in California are not worried about affordability because there's money. There's tons of money out there. There's a lot of people struggling. There are a lot of people that are not. And that's why homes are still selling in California. Open houses, my take on open houses, it's 2025. And I know that every brokerage is different. Every area is different. Predominantly, open houses don't sell houses. Open houses are there to get buyer leads for whoever's hosting the open house. They do not add traffic, valuable traffic, notable traffic, productive traffic to help sell your house. Having an open house is, in my opinion, is pointless in 2025. Number one, I think it's also dangerous in 2025 because you're having complete strangers come through your home that are not being followed around. Why? Because the agent has to stay at the front door to monitor who's coming in and out of the house. And number three, why would you want unqualified buyers, looky-loos, nosy people walking through your house like a grocery store, apartment store? Why? The serious buyers will always make an appointment. But in 2025, if that house is marketed properly, professional photography, aerial photography, 360 tour, floor plans, all the things, they're already doing their first showing online. Period. Their second showing means they're a serious buyer and they can make an appointment. make an appointment with a buyer agent that has vetted them out, because a buyer agent's not going to waste their time with a buyer that's kicking tires. Open houses are a waste of time. I'm going to stick to my guns on that. But honestly, taking a break is never a bad idea. Reset, but I would really, really, really encourage you to look at the comps. And then because California is where it's at in terms of the building inventory, more competition, price softening, I would look at those comps the last 30 to 60 days, and then I would undercut those comps. And that's what your value is. And then you price it, I would price it at the value. I would not mess around. Doesn't matter what you're looking for, doesn't matter what you want. It's all based on what has sold in your area. I hope that helps. And I keep my fingers crossed that you can get some traction and get your house sold. 100%. I wanted to just real quick, I wanted to, mentioned this earlier, and I just wanted to bring it up because I did mention it and want to follow through. About where the map, this fast company did some data on where home sellers are cutting prices the most. They released this last week, and I know that one of you guys had asked about Columbus, Ohio, so I'm going to show you that in a second. So they used data, MLS data, or excuse me, Zillow data, any data that came across that was in Zillow that had a price cut. So it's not realtor.com that has access to MLS data. This is Zillow. Zillow has most MLSs, so it's pretty close. Just wanted to disclose that to you guys. But I wanted to show you this. And again, this is all, I'm going to link all this stuff in the description so you can go through and find your state. But this is the share of homes for sale with a price cut. More price cuts, meaning the market is softening. That means that those values of the properties that are on the market now do not meet with what the buyers, they're not giving any, the buyers are not pulling the trigger. So the buyers are not pulling the trigger. It means because the values aren't where the buyers are at, which means price cuts like we were talking about earlier. So top of the list is Denver, and then Phoenix, Raleigh, Tampa, Dallas, Nashville, Salt Lake City, Utah, 33.5% in June, as of June 2025. Columbus, Ohio, 28.8%. And I forget who asked, but I think it was SC who had asked about that. Whether it was a seller's market or buyer's market, when you have 28%, almost 30% of inventory, home sellers cutting their prices, you are already in a buyer's market. There's no question, for that kind of, and these states follow suit to what I was talking about earlier. We saw Tennessee, Utah, Florida, Texas, Nevada, Florida, Texas, Georgia, California, Tennessee, California, Oklahoma, so on and so forth, Louisiana, Kentucky. You'll notice that New England states are not on this list yet. Why? Because we are on the slow slide. Here we go. Pennsylvania. I have a new awesome referral agent in Pittsburgh. I'm so excited about finally. And but Pittsburgh's feeling the pinch, but it's happening across the country. Find Providence, Rhode Island. Rhode Island, I think I saw an article, Taylor Swift, if anybody cares, is selling her house in Rhode Island. And she's probably cutting her price. Because why? Because everybody bleeds red. Everybody's feeling the pain. Philadelphia, a lot of Pennsylvania, Buffalo, New York, upstate New York there, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, 14.4%. So I wanted to just share that with you guys because I think it's important to see the shift and the softening. Let me just take a quick peek here. Let's see. Jason says, I am in need of a FMV. It must be full market value appraisal. How do I make sure it's realistic instead of what has happened recently? Well, it's one and the same, Jason. It's one and the same. If an appraisal, it's an appraisal or a a CMA, comparative market analysis, two different animals. So an appraisal is done by a licensed appraiser. Licensed appraisers tend to be more conservative, and they're also going to look at it a little bit differently because they're not looking at the marketing side of things. They're not looking at what could be, they're just looking at what is today. But in terms of making sure that, if you're looking at like a valuation to sell the property, realistic instead of what's happened recently. Well, what's happened recently is what's realistic. When you're looking at the data and you want to look at from a value perspective the last few months, but you also want to look at the last 6 months to see the trend. So if you have a trend of falling prices, sliding prices, you're going to factor that in when you look at that last 1, 2, 3 months worth of data. Because that one, two, if you have a comparable property that sold, your neighbor down the street sold 2 months ago, and the trend of the last 6 months is that it's sliding downward, you're not going to compare that to that house that sold 2 months ago and say that's where my value is. You're going to back it down a little bit to reflect the fact that you're on that downward slot, that downward trajectory. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Um, let's see. Yes, Angie, 110% open houses. It's like the dirty little secret of real estate, open houses. Honest to goodness. I did them when I was brand new. 1996. Because it helped me come in contact with a lot of new people. But does that help the seller? No, it doesn't help the seller. Let's see. Cactus says, I agree. Most homes sell through online home sites. That's why it is so important to have a good, um, you gotta have some beautification you gotta entice them. You've got to attract the buyers with good visuals, a good write-up as well. I mean, this this spacious 3 bedroom, 2 bath ranch is has an open floor plan. Ooh, yeah, great. That's not gonna do it. That's not gonna do it at all. Um, Charlton, good to see you. Good to see you. Current houses on market in my area just reduced 10,000 to $50,000. Yeah, it's happening all over the country, depending on the market. I think that if you're in an area, especially if you've had a lot of inventory accumulating over the last several months, and you have a market that is adjusting, you're going to see a lot of home sellers playing catch up. What does that mean from a buyer's perspective? Opportunity, massive opportunity. I will say this, when you are out buying a home right now, and yes, I hear about affordability. I get that 100%. But if you're in a position where you can afford it, the one thing I would stress, obviously get a good buyer's agent that knows what the heck they're doing, that they knows how to negotiate. You're going to do a full a comparative market analysis, evaluation on the buying side, just as if you were the seller. Why? Because you want to see where that number lands. And then if you're in a sliding market, you might undercut your offer. I've heard some schools of thought that, oh, offer 10% below asking. You can't do that. That doesn't work because every market's different. Every home sale is different. If you have Mr. Smith down the street that has their house priced, maybe slightly too high, you can't, cut him out at the knees. He's not going to accept that. Number one, and but number two, you get the other house down the street that they've been on the market for 3 months and they're totally, you might offer them 10%. But it depends. You've got to do your homework to know where the true market value is, because obviously if they've been on the market for a while, they're not at it. But you've got to get some, and that's where negotiation and advice of an agent um, it's not their first rodeo. They know the market. They know how to interpret the market. an agent that's been through this before, that maybe can offer some, strategic negotiation to help you to get a good deal. I think it's going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of folks that get some good deals over the next several years. Um, let's see. Oh, it's all these great comments. I'm gonna have to read through this. Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you so much, my friend.
Super chat.
Margaret with the super chat. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you being here and for the super chat. Uh, let's see. Vocal Pelican says I have a house, an apartment on 2 acres on the market for 485,000. No offers in 3 months. New agent, house on market for 2 years. Good grief! Sounds like you probably have a very unique home, which can be a challenge. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Looking for that one buyer that is looking for exactly what you have. Now adding 2 acres more, keeping price the same, will it make a difference to attract the buyers? It depends. It depends. It depends. When it comes to acreage, uh, you need to look at what the highest and best use is. Whenever I counsel a homeowner, a landowner, it's all about what the highest and best use is. If that acreage can be subdivided, it's going to have a higher valuation to a buyer than if it doesn't. If, 70% of that acreage is wet and you can't do anything with it, it's going to have less of a value to a buyer than when it doesn't. If it's level and cleared versus, sloping and tons of woods, it's going to impact what a buyer will be willing to pay. If you have a family that's looking to maybe bring in an ADU or a tiny home for a parent, an aging parent, so they can live on the property but still have their own space, and it's level and cleared, it's going to be more appealing. So it really depends. It really depends. I think if it sounds like if your house has been on the market for 2 years, either A, you've been chasing the market, or B, you have a super unique home, which means you probably need some unique marketing to find the buyer for that house. It's going to be a needle in a haystack, not impossible, but it just means you haven't reached that audience. You're not appealing to every buyer. It just becomes a lot more challenging. Having an agent, not a run-of-the-mill agent, but an agent that has experience in marketing properties that are unique, is going to help you, because they may have some, depending on where you are, depending on the community, to be able to leverage that, whatever, if you're in an area where everybody homeschools, you could, if there's something in that property that gives you more space, that you can, create an ADU for a mini classroom. And that could be something that appeals if that is common in your area. You've got to think like a buyer. Whenever you put your house on the market, you got to think like a buyer. You got to literally put which is hard, which is really, really hard. But that is the secret. You got to think like a buyer in terms of features. It's not necessarily everything like, oh, well, I love all black walls. Well, great. You might be able to find a buyer that loves all black walls, but would you be able to find more buyers if you painted the walls a color that was more appealing to said pool of buyers? Potentially. But food for thought. I hope you get some traction. That's a long time. Angie says, do you think it's better to lower sales price if something is found, or give cash back at closing? Um, I think it depends. I think it depends on, if you're talking about, you said something is found, so like maybe during a home inspection, and they find something during a home inspection. To be perfectly honest, I have a conversation with the buyer's agent, and I ask the buyer's agent, what would the buyer want? Plain and simple. I think it's, it's not a one-sided conversation. It's a collaboration. I mean, at the end of the day, the sellers want to sell, the buyers want to buy. It's the agent's job to work together to make that happen. It's not about under table, underhanded dealings. No, it's about finding mutual ground. And, in that, conversation, we find out if the buyer wants to lower the sale price, or do they want a credit. Maybe they want a credit, maybe they don't. I think it depends on what it is, and what the buyer is, what's more attractive to the buyer. But I think it's a conversation. It's not a set in stone. I hope that helps. Um, da, 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 da. Um, Charlton says, back in the FOMO, fear of missing out days, they were very few open houses. Now they are by appointment. I guess agents' time is valuable these days. I haven't seen, so during COVID, open houses changed. Open houses were appointment only open houses. A lot of them were because of COVID, because it was just crazy COVID. I haven't seen, and market might be different, but I haven't seen appointment only open houses, um, as a lot, around here anyways, at all. Um, I mean, they're doing it based on the agent's time, well, why does the seller care? Like, yeah, I mean, that's this, the agent is there to provide service to the seller. Period. Period. If you don't want to do the job, don't sign up. If you don't want to do the job, sign up. If you have a part-time job, then don't do real estate. I'm sorry. I tried 3 months, 4 months. I worked another job. I was a brand new agent working part-time as a real estate agent. It's it's very, very, very hard to provide a full level, full service, in a full service industry, but a full level of service to your clients when you have other obligations. But um, I mean, yeah, the agent's time is valuable, but that's not the issue on the table. Never should be. Should be. Like, we're here to do, the listing agent is there to get that property sold, to help the seller meet their goal, whatever that goal is. Whatever that goal is, that's what the seller's job, the seller agent, the listing agent's job is. So if they're doing it at a convenience for the seller or for themselves, that's a bunch of horse pucky, in my opinion. This, you guys have heard me rant. I think that it's not just this industry across the board. I think the society has gotten lazy, but the real estate industry has become incredibly lazy. It's so refreshing when I talk to my referral partners, and yeah, I'm gonna boast about that, because they'll do whatever it takes. They'll do whatever it takes in terms of the hours and the energy and the effort and the commitment to their clients. That's the determination. That's what separates them. That's what separates them. Um, Paul T says, would you accept an appraisal contingency for a cash sale? No. Well, I'm going to retract that and say depends. Depends on all the other terms. Depends on all the other terms. Depends on if the offer's coming in at a price that I don't think will appraise, then I'd push back on it. And I would advise my clients of that. I sometimes we don't know. We don't know for absolute certain to the penny what a property is going to appraise at. But I have definitely a good gut feeling, based because I've done all the research and I know the market. I know all the players, of all the inventory, meaning. So if they come say the house is listed at 500 and they make me a 550 offer in a softening market, cash with an appraisal, no, that's just a negotiation ploy, because what they're banking on is, because an appraisal contingency, for those watching may not know appraisal, what that would mean. An appraisal contingency is that offer is now subject to that property having a licensed appraiser, not a real estate agent, but an appraiser, come out to the property and determine what the value is. And if it doesn't come in at that value, the buyer can renegotiate or back out. In my opinion, in a declining market, if they're making an offer of $50,000 over cash, no other contingencies, with subject to an appraisal contingency, it's just a ploy. It's a ploy to maybe beat out other offers. It's a ploy to get the seller to sign. They know full well that that appraisal is not coming in at 550. Maybe it comes in at 510, 520. Now they're going to go back to the seller and renegotiate. When I'm consulting with a homeowner and we go through the offers, and I did this during COVID, I said, listen, this is the number I can justify. Anything over that is gravy. Gravy. I need you to set your expectations that if the valuation based on my comps, based on the data, we can justify 500. If if the bank approves 510, 515, great. But when you're doing your net proceeds, when you're planning your next move, don't spend money you don't have. Don't spend money you don't have. Plan for the 500. And many times the appraisal came back and I was like, holy cow, I can't believe they approved that. The appraiser pushed that through. Happy days for the seller. But I never want the opposite to happen, where I tell them, oh yeah, it'll be fine. And all of a sudden the appraisal's 10 grand lower than what I thought, because I didn't have data to back it. And now the seller is like, oh man, we already planned, get this money, yada yada, and all the things. Put you in a precarious situation. I hope that answers your question. All right, guys. So I appreciate you guys. I'm just looking to see, getting my QQQ. One last question for Margaret. She says, found my kitchen sink empties into the yard 3 years after I bought it. It's totally illegal, not disclosed, no inspection options. This is the unfortunate part about disclosure, statute of limitations. There's not much you can do, Margaret, especially at that. I mean, if you have to check with your state, check with a real estate attorney. I highly, highly doubt that there's any kind of recourse at that point. Unfortunately, so it's one of those things that you will need to fix that before you sell the property, or disclose that it needs to be fixed to the new buyer, unfortunately. Leslie says, historically, why do sellers pay all the closing costs? Oh, they don't, actually. I'm just curious, selling a house expensive sometimes feels like buyers want the sun, moon, and stars. So, Leslie, they don't. Buyers pay most of the closing costs. Sellers, you will, as a seller, you have your real estate commission. You have whatever fees your state has, like Massachusetts has a transfer tax, a state tax that the sellers are charged with when they sell, $4.56 per thousand. It's been that way for 30 years, hasn't changed. And then they have, mortgage discharge fee. If you have a mortgage on the house, there'll be a fee for, getting the discharge and recording the discharge. But all your closing costs, all the other closing costs, including if you are in a closing attorney state, all that expenses is on the buyer side, borne by the buyer. The buyer takes care of the lion's share of the closing costs. Now, what might happen, and maybe what you're referring to, is if the buyer says, "Hey, will you cover X amount of dollars in my closing costs as a closing cost credit," which I'm seeing come back for sure. The way you look at that, it's all about the net in your pocket. So you get that $500,000 offer, and the buyer says, well, I'm going to offer you 505 with a $5,000 credit towards my closing costs. Well, that offer's 500. Plain and simple. I had a situation recently where we had multiple offers, and we had a buyer submit an offer without a buyer agent rep. It didn't have a buyer agent, which means there's no buyer agent fee. We had several offers. The other offers had a buyer agent fee incorporated into the offer. When I went through all the offers on the spreadsheet that I put together and compare them all and what the net was after their expenses, my sellers accepted an offer that was on paper purchase price was lower, but their net was higher because because there wasn't a buyer agent fee in there. And the closing cost is the same way. So you have a closing cost credit, you say, oh gosh, you have to pay a $5,000 closing cost, but maybe your net will be higher or lower, depending compared to an offer that doesn't have a closing cost. But food for thought. I hope that helps. Oh, I got to answer this question because I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. Huge Walking Dead. I just found out, totally unrelated. I'm in the middle. I'm binging Sons of Anarchy. I like that kind of stuff, and it's a second time watching that series. And the one of the guys there. Oh gosh, Opie. He was the guy from Walking Dead, the creepy skins guy. I didn't even know that. I like connect the dots. Total random. You guys probably don't care about that piece of information. I just thought it was just off the top of my head. I thought that was like, huh, I like that guy. Anyways, in-laws recently passed. I'm so sorry. Selling their home. We accepted an offer, but we couldn't be present during their inspection. The sellers usually are not during a home inspection. And, hopefully if I'm assuming if you have an agent, your listing agent should be present during the inspection or at least in the proximity of the house. Inspector flooded the basement shower. They said water in the basement. And then lost the sale, not happy. Had to lost the sale and the price of replacing the carpets. Oh man. Oh man. This, I would say that's, oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry that happened because that is, I would try, if you have pictures, if any data, if any pictures of the basement not flooded prior to the inspection, hopefully you do. Hopefully you do. You have some kind of documentation showing the before. It's still going to be their word against yours, but you could reach out to the home inspection company, file a complaint. I personally would file a complaint. I'd take my chances and see where it went, where it goes. They may settle with you just to make you quiet and go away. A lot of them do. So I would push. I would probably also talk to a real estate attorney and have them push for you. Sometimes, and I've done this, just the act of having a lawyer involved, even if they're not actually proactively doing anything, but just having that presence of saying, I've consulted with my lawyer, lawyer has drafted this email or whatnot. The last thing small businesses want is to be, tied up in court because oftentimes they don't win. They don't win. The consumer comes out eventually. Case in point with the National Association of Realtors, which is why they settled a $418 million lawsuit. Like that's because the real estate agencies were like, fine, drag this thing out. It's going to cost us more money in the long run. Same thing. That's what I would do, my friend. I would reach out to, I think that's what I would do. Reach out, see if you have some documentation, reach out to a real estate attorney. Yes, it might cost you a few bucks, but it would be worth it because it sounds like you probably have more damage than that, and it's worth chasing after. But I'm sorry. That's a, yeah, I'm super sorry. I'm super mad. Time to fire that agent on the spot. You have grounds to fire them on the spot. Yeah, I would. That's unfortunate. Man, I'm super sorry for that. But anyways, hey, listen, guys. I'm gonna jet here, get some get some food, get a little hungry, and and whatnot. And I really appreciate, really, really, really appreciate you guys joining me. tonight. I really do. I always, I love all the participation, love my one time during the week I get to interact with you guys. I know you send me, messages and all the things, but I enjoy um, hearing from you guys, and being able to answer questions and all the things. Um, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the country. There's a lot of stuff in society. There's all kinds of things happen. It's a little bit of upset and all the things, and people are lashing out and saying things. I get that. I get some brunt of it. The channel. It is what it is. In public eye, that stuff happens. I have a sign that is I printed, put it up on my desk. I want to share it with you, and this is my hope. Something just to remember as you're going forward this week is be who you are, say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. The great Dr. Seuss. Forget about the naysayers, forget about all the other bogus stuff. Focus on the people that matter. Checking on your neighbor. Say hi to your neighbor. You know what? You hold the door for somebody, they don't say anything, but the next person may say thank you. Focus on the people that matter. Be kind, take care of each other, seek to understand if you don't see eye to eye with someone, and be patient. And, at everything, at the end of the day, all we have is each other. All we have is each other. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for the last couple hours. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great night. I'll see you next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great week, everyone. Take care. Ciao. Be good.